Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of the County Seat. I'm your host, Chad Booth. Today, we're bringing you our show from the headquarters of the Utah Association of Counties in Murray, Utah. We'll be talking to a panel here in a few minutes. Our topic today is going to answer the question of how counties take on tasks that are a little bit bigger than their budgets or their personnel and succeed at it. There is a way to do it, and it's being done all around the state on many levels. They're called interlocal agreements. That will be our discussion a little bit later. To give you a foundation of what an interlocal agreement is, let's first check in with Terry Wood.
Police and fire services. They are the most important services provided by our cities. It also happens to be the most costly service provided by our cities. Some municipalities contract with the county to provide those services, basically as a customer of the county. This relationship allows cities to provide important services to their citizens without the individual investment in their own fire stations, equipment, and personnel. Another cost-saving option is an interlocal agreement. The difference here is that under the interlocal agreement, the municipality has a stake in policy decisions.
The interlocal agreement is sort of the master service delivery arrangement, and it creates a separate governmental body that's in charge of providing all of the services, making the policy decisions for the service delivery, and making sure that they function effectively.
As areas of Salt Lake County were annexed or incorporated into cities, it created a challenge for the county to determine how to plan for services like fire departments.
It was hard for the chief to be able to figure out, do I buy apparatus, do I build stations, do I hire personnel, only to have to let them go a year later, or have to give up a fire engine or give up a fire station because that part of the unincorporated area left.
Unified Fire Authority and Unified Police Department were created to solve the very issue of providing police and fire services on a regional level.
So one of the frustrating things is when one fire department will build a station and just a mile away somebody else will build a station because they need coverage in their city and they need coverage over here in a different city. Well, if you work together, you can put one station that services both areas. You might put a few more people there, but that's a lot more cost effective than building two $4 million stations.
You can just really view the overall structure as the interlocal entity, and then its members are the service area with the individual cities that are involved in the service area and the non-service area cities that are dues-paying members that participate in it out of their general fund.
An interlocal agreement allows participating cities to have ownership in the process and the ability to pool resources. Instead of having a SWAT team or a hazmat team in each city, there are different specialties contained within both the Unified Fire Authority and Unified Police Department.
So what we like to say is even though we're the largest fire agency in the state of Utah, we're really 10 small fire departments that have been grouped together.
So you get the beauty of having your own private police force and then all the other, services you might need periodically, but couldn't afford to pay for if you operated on your own, on call when you need them.
This interlocal model is not a contract. They are member entities. So when Midvale joined the Unified Police Department, they came over with their whole department intact, and they did that saving $1 million a year over their costs because they actually could do away with some of their specialty services, put those officers back in patrol on the street so they get more patrol, and then rely upon the pooled service of the greater organization to fill those specialty functions. So they got better service, less cost, and retained their local control.
For the most part, citizens are only concerned with the fact that the police and the fire department show up when needed. However, it's good to know that local governments are working hard to provide the highest quality of service while keeping costs to the taxpayer to a minimum. For the County Seat, I'm Terry Wood.
Thanks, Terry. Have we caught your interest so far? Well, stay with us. We'll be right back with a discussion about the inner workings of interlocal agreements here on the county seat.
Why is it that environmental protection and economic development are often placed at odds with each other? In Duchesne County, they have both. Here, modern industry and resource development go hand in hand with some of the most pristine wilderness in the western United States. A strong economy balanced with a lifestyle of exploration and discovery. But don't take my word for it. Go visit them. Duchesne County, close enough for business, far enough to get away.
Color, it's something that can be seen. But have you ever wanted to reach out and touch it? Experience it. In San Juan County, Utah, color comes to life like nowhere else on earth. Color can be more than an abstract. Color can be your gateway to a new world. Visit San Juan County and explore the past, present, and future in a way that you've only dreamed of. San Juan County. Color your experience.
What would you do with an extra day in Utah Valley? Explore the Wasatch Mountains? Snap a family photo at Bridal Veil Falls. Cool off on Utah Lake or the Provo River. No matter what you're searching for, you can find it in Utah Valley. Bring everyone together.
Welcome back to the county seat. Our guest today for our discussion on interlocal and intra-local definitions and organizations and things as such is Commissioner Kerry Gibson of Weber County, who's also the president of the Utah Association of Counties, Adam Trupp, who is the guy at the helm of the Utah Association of Counties, the executive director, and Kerri Nakamura, who is the Salt Lake Valley Law Enforcement Service Area Administrator. Thank you all for joining us.
Thank you.
So as I talk about different organizations and different kinds of relationships, there seems to be one problem that guys on the street that are pedestrian like me have trouble understanding, and that is the difference between an interlocal agreement and an intra-local agreement. So let's start it there. Somebody be kind enough to help me get those clear in my head and the viewers at home.
Well, I'll do that quickly, but I think it's pretty basic in terms of especially what we're talking about today. Interlocal means between locals, and intra means internal to a local. So what we're talking about a lot and what we're going to cover today and what we're going to address today is agreements between local governments, whether it's cities with counties or between counties or between the entities that are similar to each other but not identical. And so what we're talking about is how do we pull people together to form an effective product that people can use across a lot of boundaries.
Some people might look at an agreement between a county and a city and say, well, the city is within the county, so is that intra, but it would actually be inter because they are separate
Correct.
entities of government.
Correct.
Obviously, one of the top ones that people within county government realize is USIP. What are some of the others?
Well, there's a number of them. Kerri may want to refer to the one she's involved with, but there are quite a few. USIP is the County Indemnities Pool, which pulls counties together for the purpose of sharing the burden of costs that they face as a result of liability insurance and consequences of liability being found or paying costs for insurance coverage. But there are others too. We have interlocals that are created between counties for the purpose of providing substance abuse treatment services or mental health treatment services. So they are a way that those counties can get together and say, we've got a relatively low population in our 5 counties. We have a need that we need to address, and so let's pull together and pool our resources so we can bring experts to a central location, provide better service without having to do it individually in
So
separate areas.
would you consider an organization like UAC, the Utah Association of Counties, as an interlocal organization, or would that fall into some other category?
We're set up as an association, which basically is the same concept as an interlocal agreement. It's a different way of getting about it, but it's the same concept. It's all about working together to accomplish a goal that we might not be able to accomplish on our own. And that's really the key to the discussion to me today anyway, is that each of us have desires and goals that we're trying to accomplish within our smaller realm. And very, very often those challenges are too big for small entities. And so when we have the opportunity to partner with each other and to share the load and work together, it gives us tremendous momentum. It gives us an opportunity to go forward with mass and move forward in a way that's productive. So when you refer to the Association of Counties, there's no question, Chad, that we are more effective at what we do as counties because we're associated as a group and we move forward together on policy issues, on direction, on governance. We work together to accomplish our goals. You mentioned earlier the Utah County's Indemnity Pool, or USIP as we call it. Again, a need came up many years ago in which most of the counties in this state were not able to find appropriate insurance coverage for their needs, and at a price that was reasonable. And most of those counties didn't have the ability to self-insure themselves. In fact, only one that in the state self-insures themselves today. And so we got together, our predecessors got together, showing extreme foresight and vision in my opinion, and created by interlocal agreement an indemnity pool where we pool our resources and then provide that insurance coverage through that resource.
So basically you self-insure, the counties all chip into that reserve pool that an insurance would cover, and then maybe you buy reinsurance for catastrophic loss or something
Absolutely.
Like that.
Perfect. That's you stated it great. And the fact of the matter is, as I said, not one of those could do it on their own. In fact, frankly, because there's only a few counties in the state, 29 to be exact, it takes a lot of us working together to make it work. And so it's a benefit to the fact that we have most of the counties in the state working together towards this common goal.
Okay, well, Kerri, let's talk about efficiencies. All right, so, you know, the Unified Police Department, formerly the Salt Lake County Sheriff's Office, you know, people still sometimes in this valley have the perception that UPD is still a county sheriff's office, but is really quite different because of interlocal agreements. Is that not right?
Exactly. It's very different from the Salt Lake County Sheriff's Office. Prior to the creation of the Unified Police Department, the county sheriff had his budget set for local law enforcement that he provided by contract out to different municipalities within the county. And he would go to the county council, formerly the county commission, and then the county council, and have that budget set, and then go out and do a contract agreement with the different cities. And what we heard from a lot of communities was that they wanted to be owners of the department. They wanted to have a more vested stake in setting budgets and making policy decisions regarding local law enforcement services. And so through lots of years of work, in 2010, January 1 of 2010, the Unified Police Department went live, modeled much after the Unified Fire Authority. And in that model, there are no more contracts. We don't contract with any of the cities who participate. Rather, representatives of those cities come together, sit as a governing board, are vested with the budgetary authority, and make all of the decisions for the department in concert with the sheriff acting as the chief executive officer of the Unified Police Department.
But that is an interlocal agreement that puts the Unified Police Department together.
It is.
Would one of those previous contracts been considered an interlocal agreement if the sheriff was just saying, okay, I'll do your law enforcement my way and it'll cost you X number of dollars?
No, that was just a contractual agreement. And what the cities would argue is in that agreement, we're price takers. You know, the county council sets the agenda or sets the budget. The sheriff comes out to us and tells us this is how much it will cost for local law enforcement services, and that's how the budget gets set. In the interlocal agreement arena, using the law to create its own separate governmental entity. The board, which are the representatives of each of the entities included, that's Midvale, Riverton, Harriman, unincorporated county, Taylorsville, sit together and they create the budget. No longer are they price takers, they are helping create, this is the service we want to offer and this is the price.
So just to confirm, as we're ready to take a quick break, then an interlocal agreement ends up being more of a legal document than a contractual financial arrangement in goods for services. So it actually is a founding in law.
It is.
Okay, very good. I think that's a good place for us to take a break. We'll be right back with the county seat. Our talk about interlocal agreements. Gosh, I'm learning a whole bunch. I hope you are. We'll be back in just a couple of minutes.
I lived in Phoenix and then down in Orange County in California, and I met a small town girl and she brought me home. Just the smaller community that makes you feel like when you go somewhere you know everybody. You know, the sporting programs, the dance events, all these kinds of things, you run into people you know and that care about you and your family. And that makes it just a wonderful place to have little ones like this.
Isn't it time you found the balance you've been looking for? Uinta County, Utah.
There is a place where the desert comes alive, where rain breaks forth from solid stone and gardens spring from blistered rock. There is a place with enough color to make a rainbow jealous, where boulders are bigger than buildings and cliffs are higher than clouds. There is a place that will straighten your step, tighten your grip, widen your eyes, and open your jaw. There is a place.
You go through the day-to-day repeating what you did yesterday. Don't you wish you could access that piece of your life that's missing? Find the beauty, serenity, family fun, or anything else that's missing from your life in the Cedar City, Bryan Head area. Gain access to your adventure, whether it's camping, hiking, the arts, festivals, or just a getaway. Visit cedarcityayl.com for details on all the adventures that you can access in scenic southern Utah.
The weekends just never feel like they're long enough. By the time you get to a destination, you're worn out and you may need a vacation to recover from your last vacation. The solution is closer than you think, and that's just what you need. You can find the desert at Little Sahara, the cool refreshment of Yuba Lake, escape to the green of the forest on the Nebo Loop, and witness the excitement of Joab's own extreme racing on June 27th. Make your escape to Joab County. It'll change your family forever.
Welcome back to the county seat. We are talking today about interlocal agreements, and we've kind of covered the bases. If you've missed it, I invite you to go back online, watch the show so you can get caught up to speed on this and share it with your friends. So what I would like to talk about now is we've kind of defined what they are and how they work. I would like to talk about why do them. Why doesn't a city just do its own police department? Why doesn't a rural county just do its own health? You know, what are some of the programs? Let's list a few of them and why do them? And I'll just throw that out to you guys.
Well, I think there's an awful lot of opportunities, and again, it's just as simple as what we can't do alone, we can do together. Just today, in fact, in our commission meeting in Weber County, we approved an interlocal agreement between Weber County and a few others in our neighborhood that helps us to share resources during a disaster. So when you think about it, we're all taxpayers and we don't have all the resources that we need during every event, and most of those types of events might be fairly local in nature. And so if I have a flooding situation, for instance, in Weber County, I might be able to
something you know nothing about.
I know nothing about. I might be able to look at some of the information that's shared through this interlocal agreement and say, okay, I know that in Box Elder County, they've got 2 long stick track hoes, they've got generation equipment, they've got things that I can use in this situation, and they've agreed to help share that so that those resources can be consolidated into a place where they can really do some good. And it's not just about what you're going to get, it's about what you're going to share and how that all comes together to benefit our taxpayers.
What are some of the other examples?
Well, there's quite a range of them, actually. I mentioned earlier mental health treatment services. We have the same thing with substance abuse treatment services and interaction with courts on those issues. We've got local health departments around the state that deal with a whole range of issues that deal with public health. But as individual counties, many of those offices would be very small, and the capacity to do what's required to help protect public health would be very limited. And so by pulling together, they're able to say, look, we're not necessarily going to have some sort of disease outbreak every year in our county or even in most of our counties. But when we do, we can be prepared with a group response, and we can bring people in. So there's a range of ways we can approach solving these problems and addressing these problems when they don't occur that often. And that's what we try to do with a number of these different
Well, Kerry, you obviously are equipped to talk about probably the most visible interlocal agreement just by the fact that it's in Salt Lake County and that's where all the media is, that's the UPD. Why is it more efficient for they're no longer contracting cities, the cities that are in the interlocal agreement to join UPD as opposed to them striking out on their own?
It really, the idea grew out of the topics or the examples that were given earlier. So when the commissioner's talking about sharing equipment, one entity has the equipment, the other entity doesn't need it. UPD sort of takes that to a whole new level. And so within the UPD, we have a pooled service arrangement where all of the different participating entities have access to these pooled services that are owned by the entire department. And so let's use the example of Holiday, for example. Holiday City had a homicide maybe 2 years ago, and it was the first one they had had in about 10 years. If they had been their own police department, chances of them having a highly skilled, highly qualified homicide detective on staff would have been quite low. But by being part of the Unified Police Department, they had, top rate, highly sophisticated homicide detectives descend on the community, work that homicide, and solve the homicide within 24 hours. And the mayor at the time remarked that, he never could have done that on his own. And so that's the beauty of pulling those kinds of resources together through an interlocal entity.
Obviously, it saves money, which will lead us to the next question that I'll ask right after this commercial break. We're going to take a break here on the county seat. We will be right back with our discussion on interlocal agreements.
Kanab, base camp for your southern Utah adventures. You belong in Kanab.
Unlimited opportunity for adventure. It's all about knowing where to look. ATV adventures, rock crawling events, art festivals, and wildlife events. The opportunities are limitless. Plan your stay and join us for Snake Valley Festival, June 19th through the 21st, and National ATV Jamboree, June 23rd through 27th. Pick your adventure in Millard County.
Along Interstate 70 and Highway 89 is an area that is rich with high mountain peaks, vast forests, lakes, streams, historical sites, and a climate that is perfect for outdoor adventures, no matter what the season. Join us in Salina, Utah for the Eyes to the Sky Balloon Festival. You will be greeted by local residents with a smile and a welcoming hand. In the center of it all, Sevier County.
Welcome back to the county seat. We've been talking about interlocal governments. We've talked about what they are, why they are, and now let's talk about the funding, because funding is a big part of it. Kerry, how are the different ways that you go about funding these? Because there's a real difference. Interlocal governments exist without direct taxing. How does that happen?
Well, there are a couple of different models, and you can either have an interlocal entity where each member of the entity pays their proportionate share after they've set the budget, or you can have what we have in UPD and with UFA, the Unified Fire Authority, which is a little bit of a blended model. There is a funding district that underlies some of the membership. And so for those members, their participation is funded through the funding district. And that goes straight to the department, where other people within the department, so like Taylorsville, for example, is not in the funding district, the Salt Lake Valley Law Enforcement Service area, but they are in the Unified Police Department. And they just fund that out of their general revenues directly to the Unified Police Department.
So basically you can create an independent, through law, an independent taxing entity to pay for these, or the contributing members can just pay for them.
Yes, and our two models in Salt Lake County allow a hybrid, so that you can be in the department and not in the funding district.
Okay, was that all, as far as advantages go? And
well, I don't know if it's all, but it is certainly an important point. I think we've talked about the issue of how we coordinate, how we provide better services. But one of the issues that's out there that I think is a question is the issue of governance. And Kerri described partly how they deal with it in the entity she's referring to. But the question that's been in front of the legislature in the last couple of years, and will probably be for a while, is how are these things governed? Who is it that is really responsible and, more importantly, accountable? And as I was thinking earlier, the fact is, if there's a problem in Weber County, you can go to the commissioners and say, here's what we're worried about, or here's what we're worried about in our department. But how do you approach an interlocal entity? Who's actually in charge of UPD or Unified Fire? That's an issue that we, I think, need to continue to look at and be sure that there is attention to as we move forward. So are
there concerns that you may get a rogue board somewhere that spends more money than they have? Or
I think that's a possibility. Certainly that's something to be aware of, and the question of, hey, we overspent our budget, who do we go to and ask for that money for, and how do we end up with something that is somebody accountable? So
it sounds like you're describing Chicago to me, but I mean.
Well, we're trying not to get off into any place that's really not got any parameters, and so that's what I think we keep getting, trying to get tighter and tighter on.
I will answer part of Adam's question with the entities we've created in Salt Lake County. The responsibility continues to rest with the independent elected officials from the cities who sit on the board. They are still responsible. They report back to their city councils. They need to get certain authorizations from their city councils before they can spend some money at the entity, even though the interlocal is a separate legal entity.
Chad, ownership's important, no matter what it is. If you feel ownership through these interlocal agreements, then you can custom tailor the solution to your needs. And so it's not just for transparency, it's for solving those individual problems. And if you feel like part of an owner, you may not be the majority, but as an owner, you can make that difference.
I think what we see too is people, the public and the folks who are running any agency or entity are interested in having some control, some responsibility along with authority. And that's what this tries to do. And the issue is, can we set structures that not only are more efficient, but also provide that freedom while having some sort of oversight and control.
You guys couldn't have set me up any better to end the show than saying, that's it for the county seat. Remember, local government is where your life happens. It's the most effective government close to home. Be part of the solution. Become involved. We'll see you next week on the county seat. If you like this video, then we invite you to subscribe to our channel, The County Seat. You can do that here. And we invite you to share with your friends. We also invite you to get all the latest up-to-date information by following us on our social media channels. And if all else fails, make sure that you watch The County Seat Sunday morning at 8:30 right here on ABC4 Utah.